God is good all the time. All the time, God is good. So praised be the name of the Lord, now and forever. Why do we celebrate Jubilee 25 years as a silver Jubilee, then 50 years as a golden Jubilee, and so on? Why? And another question. Where do you find Jubilee year celebrated or mandated to celebrate in the Bible? You have to open the book of Leviticus on chapter 25. Remember that chapter is as the silver Jubilee for us. However, if you read carefully this chapter, you realize that the word Jubilee is mentioned as a name for the 50th year. In the celebrations, we want that each generation experiences and celebrates the Jubilee year at least twice. So after 25 years, and then after 50 years, and then if you live that long, 75 years Jubilee, and even 100 years. So those who are well over 25 years of age must remember our last great Jubilee year 2000, exactly 25 years ago. It was 2000 years, 2000 years since the birth of Christ. And you know what? In 8 years, we will be celebrating another great Jubilee, 2000 years since the great salvific act of Jesus Christ, his death and his resurrection in 2033. However, the biblical Jubilee is not related to a century or half of it or quarter of it, but to the number 7, from which Sabbath derives, and of course the multiplication of the number 7 is also when we arrive at number 50. So Hebrew word shab or shabah, without letter T at the end or TH, means two things: rest and 7, two things. And the word Shabbat, of course, means celebration of the 7th. And here, not necessarily the 7th day only. I want to point clearly that in Old Testament, especially in the Law of Moses, Shabbat is not only referred to the 7th day, as many people may think. It is referring to a periodical rest after the measure of time, starting with 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 years, and 7 times 7 years, that when you arrive at the year 50. So listen now what we read in Leviticus chapter 25, verse 1 to 5. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in their yield. But on the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of the complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your unpruned vine. It shall be a year of complete rest in the land." So that's the first 5 verses of the chapter 5 of Leviticus. So it means rest and means 7. So you hear about the rest for land and a rest for the 7th. So here we have exactly not the Sabbath day, but the Sabbath year or sabbatical year. You know, some religious, myself including, after completing some number of years, take a little sabbatical time off. It's a time off on the sabbatical for prayer, study, and so on. So it's good for the body and good for the soul, as you can see. Since I did a 4-month sabbatical last year after completing my 12 years of pastoral work in Portmore. So now in Leviticus chapter 25, and now I start from verse 10 until 17, we read this. And you shall hallow the 50th year, and you shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you. You shall return every one of you to your property, and every one of you to your family. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. You shall not sow or reap the aftergrowth or harvest the unpruned vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat only what the field itself produces. In this year of Jubilee, you shall return every one of you to your property. When you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not cheat one another. When you buy from your neighbor, you shall pay only for the number of years since the Jubilee. The seller shall charge you only for the remaining crop of years. Listen to that. If the years are more, you shall increase the price, and if the years are fewer, you shall diminish the price, for it is certain number of harvests that you are being sold to you. You shall not cheat one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord, your God. So one thing that it's clear here, and I probably should have read few verses before, then it says in verse 9, then you shall have the trumpet sound loud on the 10th day of the 7th month of the day of the atonement, and you shall have the trumpet sounded throughout the year of the Lamb. This is after the completion of the 7 times 7 years, which is 49, and after that you are supposed to proclaim the trumpet and proclaim a very special year, which is not sabbatical year anymore, it's a Jubilee year. So we need to celebrate Jubilee year, and so 50th year now is, and then we have added 50th year, and in the past it was celebrated every 50th year. In some process, in some time in the church, they said no, because some people during plagues and various things, they couldn't even live one Jubilee year. And Jubilee year was always associated with this penance and redemption of sin, especially indulgences. So they wanted all the people to experience that, and that's why then the 50 was divided into half, and we do it every 25 years, and we have 4 jubilees in a century. All right. So the Jubilee is thus a freedom from servitude caused to the loss of land or property. It happened many times in the early history of Israel that as people grew in number, they parceled their little piece of land. Remember in Joshua it's distributed, little piece of land to their sons, and then sons to their grandsons, and that eventually they could not live of it, of their own. And of their own will, they gave the land to someone and became servants or slaves to the owners of that land. So big rich owners that could buy from the poor small farmers and then make them slaves and do the work on their land, like in feudal Europe. That was part of the process in the early history of Israel. So the Jubilee year, every 50th year, was established in the Bible that the people return to their own land and their own at the end of years of servitude, and do not die as slaves but as free people. For this reason, when, for example, Queen Victoria proclaimed the Emancipation Day on 1st of August in 1834, I believe, it was a year of great jubilee. There were even songs made of jubilee, giving freedom. So giving freedom to people from oppression, from unpaid debts, from being fugitives in the land, or today you could say even illegal immigrants, was always, or should have been always, a hallmark of the 50th year, a hallmark of the Jubilee year. The priestly explanation, for example, for the 70 years of exile in Babylon was God's punishment for not keeping the Jubilee year, where everyone was supposed to get free. And here I go to the second book of Chronicles in chapter 36, the last chapter, verses 21 and 22. And Chronicles chapter 36, 21 to 22. Okay, it's here. To fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, and until the land had made up for its Sabbaths. The land made, Sabbath is every 7 years, for its Sabbath. All the days that it lay desolate, it kept Sabbath to fulfill the 70 years. So today we mark the Jubilee year at the doors. When we open the doors of the temples, we leave them open for the year for those who have alienated themselves from Christ and the church, to seek mercy and indulgence, freedom and indulgence from God. So therefore, pilgrimage to the holy sites, penance and reconciliation services to make peace with God and become free and not slaves to sin, is a mark of our celebrating the Jubilee year, which is biblically based. So the main point of the Sabbath and sabbatical and Jubilee year is mercy and freedom. And for this reason, Jesus was never afraid to break the Sabbath when it meant to free someone from any oppression of sickness, hunger, or anything. Read it in the Bible. It's always, Sabbath is broken because something good, somebody is freed from some oppression. And this is for us all about sabbatical year and the Sabbath and the Sabbath year. I will be giving a couple of very special presentation after Easter about Sabbath and justification. I present the justification of keeping the Sabbath on Sunday, the Lord's Day as well. So meanwhile, we will speak about biblical foundation for some of our Lenten practices during Lent, and then I will return to the Sabbath day and the Lord's Day. So for now, God bless you.